The 2026 FIFA World Cup is just months away, but instead of excitement, anticipation, and celebration, the build-up is being dominated by backlash, fear, and controversy.
Administration's crackdown is sparking criticism overseas. The former FIFA president is calling for soccer fans to boycott the World Cup in the U.S.
2026 FIFA World Cup, a historic expanded global event, is already getting overshadowed by politics because days before the official World Cup draw,
a tournament created to bring continents together now finds itself at the heart of a global dispute that reaches far beyond the pitch. The 2026 FIFA World Cup was envisioned as the biggest and most commercially dominant tournament in the event's history. Co-hosted by 3 nations and supported by billions in projected revenue, it was meant to symbolize scale, ambition, and unity, instead of a calm build toward celebration. Social media timelines across Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia are carrying a different narrative. Fans are sharing images of canceled flights, refunded hotel bookings, and public statements explaining why they no longer plan to travel to the United States for matches. The lingering question is how a sporting event built on unity arrived at such a moment. The scope of the 2026 tournament was designed to be self-explanatory. For the first time ever, the World Cup will be jointly hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, featuring an expanded format of 48 national teams and a record-breaking number of matches spread across North America. Organizers forecasted massive economic gains, with estimates suggesting nearly $5 billion could enter the U.S. economy alone through tourism, hospitality, transportation, and retail spending. Cities including Dallas, Atlanta, Miami, Los Angeles, New York, and others have spent years preparing, pouring resources into infrastructure upgrades, stadium improvements, transit coordination, and large-scale security planning intended to manage millions of international visitors. The tournament was promoted as a milestone for American soccer and a showcase of cross-border cooperation. Rather than a smooth countdown, the focus shifted as online concern around U.S. immigration policy intensified. In recent years, visa processes have grown more complex for many travelers, marked by longer wait times, tighter documentation rules, and higher rejection rates for applicants from certain regions. For supporters hoping to attend matches, the journey has begun to feel unpredictable. Fans in Nigeria have shared accounts of visa applications denied without clear explanation. Families in Pakistan have described stress over minor paperwork issues that could undo months of preparation. Travelers from parts of the Middle East and Africa have voiced fears of extended questioning at airports or secondary screenings that leave them feeling singled out before the tournament even starts. Not every story circulating online has been independently confirmed. Still, perception often moves faster than official reassurance. In a digital environment where a single clip can reach millions within hours, individual experiences shape public confidence regardless of government response. Human rights groups have previously documented cases in which travelers reported difficulties at U.S. points of entry, reinforcing concerns that extend beyond speculation. Organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have warned that any policy perceived as discriminatory clashes with the inclusive values the World Cup claims to promote. For a tournament sold as a celebration of equality and global connection, even the impression that nationality or religion could affect entry experiences sends shockwaves far beyond one airport terminal. Security planning has only added another layer to the debate. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, widely known as IC, is expected to be deeply involved in security operations throughout the tournament. The agency's leadership has declined to guarantee a pause in enforcement activities during match periods, prompting advocacy groups to question how visiting fans who engage in protests or political expression might be handled. Critics warn that demonstrations critical of government policy could collide with immigration enforcement in unpredictable ways. Supporters of strict border policies counter that heightened security is unavoidable for an event of this scale, especially in a country preparing to host millions of visitors simultaneously. The unresolved balance between safety and openness now sits at the center of the backlash. Political context has further intensified scrutiny. S. President Donald Trump recently drew international attention after publicly floating the idea of annexing Greenland from Denmark, a remark that triggered diplomatic criticism across Europe. In Germany and France, some football officials briefly discussed the possibility of exploring boycott scenarios in response to broader U.S. political developments, although both national federations later pushed back against immediate withdrawal. The mere fact that such conversations reached official circles underscored how quickly the tournament became entangled with geopolitics. Former FIFA president Sepp Blatter added momentum to the debate by expressing concern over the marginalization of political opposition and aggressive immigration enforcement in the United States. Blatter, suspended by FIFA in 2015 amid corruption allegations and later acquitted, remains a polarizing figure. Still, his remarks carried symbolic weight, given that he once advocated strongly for returning the World Cup to American soil. Current FIFA president Gianni Infantino has not supported any boycott calls, and FIFA continues to state that preparations are moving forward as planned, though the organization is reportedly keeping a close watch on global sentiment. The absence of decisive statements from major governing bodies has left room for speculation. National football federations across Europe, Africa, and Asia have largely avoided taking firm positions either for or against a boycott, choosing instead to concentrate on qualification campaigns and logistical planning. Meanwhile, organized supporter groups have grown increasingly vocal, with some urging their federations to issue travel advisories or establish emergency support systems for fans who still plan to attend matches in the United States. Ideas circulating in parts of Europe include dedicated legal hotlines, expanded consular staffing, and rapid response teams to assist citizens facing entry issues. Even if these measures are never activated, the fact they are being discussed highlights a level of unease rarely linked to a World Cup host. Economic stakeholders are monitoring developments closely. Global sponsors such as Emirates, Visa, and Adidas have committed hundreds of millions of dollars to sponsorship rights, marketing campaigns, and on-the-ground activations designed to maximize the tournament's global reach and commercial impact. Reach billions of viewers worldwide. Corporate plans for the tournament were built around expectations of sold-out stadiums and energetic fan festivals driven by waves of international travelers. If substantial numbers of overseas supporters ultimately choose not to attend, that financial model changes. Sports economists caution that partially filled venues would cut into ticket revenue and weaken the atmosphere that fuels television ratings and sponsor value. Local economies stand to gain or lose depending on how travel decisions evolve. Host cities across the United States have been planning for full hotels, busy restaurants, sold-out entertainment districts, and a spike in temporary employment tied to tourism. Thousands of seasonal jobs were projected to support transportation services, event staffing, hospitality, and merchandise sales. Should international attendance fall short, many of those positions may never materialize. The frequently cited $5 billion economic impact estimate relies heavily on strong turnout from Asia, Africa, and Europe. A meaningful drop in foreign visitors would significantly narrow that figure. At the same time, attention has quietly shifted north and south. Cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Mexico City, and Guadalajara are increasingly discussed online as alternative bases for fans who still want the World Cup experience without entering the United States. Canada's visa process is often described by travelers as clear and predictable, with transparent requirements and relatively consistent approval timelines. Mexico, with its deep football culture and long history of hosting major tournaments, is widely associated with passionate crowds and welcoming stadium environments. Some supporters from South America and Europe have openly said they would prefer attending matches in Mexico due to cultural familiarity and easier entry. That reputational contrast has become part of the wider conversation. While the United States faces debate over border enforcement and political messaging, Canada and Mexico are frequently portrayed in online discussions as stable and accessible alternatives. FIFA has not indicated any intention to move matches away from U.S. venues. Still, reports from multiple outlets suggest internal evaluations are taking place. Reassigning fixtures would be logistically difficult and politically sensitive, but even the suggestion highlights how perception can shape operational decisions in modern sports governance. History helps explain why this moment feels unusual. Boycotts of international sporting events have happened before, though they are rarer than outright exclusions. After the First World War, Austria, Bulgaria, Germany, Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire were barred from the 1920 Olympic Games. South Africa was excluded from the 1964 Tokyo Olympics because of apartheid, and Rhodesia's invitation to the 1972 Games was withdrawn following global pressure over its white minority rule. More recently, during the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, several governments announced diplomatic boycotts to protest China's treatment of Uyghur Muslims, while still allowing athletes to compete. While withholding official government representation, Russia has been barred from many international competitions following its 2022 invasion of Ukraine. The most prominent large-scale boycott remains the 1980 Moscow Summer Olympics, staged after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, when more than 60 nations led by the United States refused to participate. For years later, 19 countries aligned with the Soviet Union responded by boycotting the 1984 Los Angeles Games. Despite these precedents, the World Cup has never faced a coordinated political boycott by qualified national teams. There have been notable disruptions, but for different reasons. Uruguay declined to travel to Italy for the 1934 World Cup after several European nations skipped the inaugural 1930 tournament in Montevideo, a decision driven more by scheduling and logistics than organized political protest. Ahead of the 1966 World Cup, every African nation withdrew from qualification in protest of FIFA allocating only one combined slot to Africa, Asia, and Oceania, a move that ultimately forced structural reform. Calls for Norway to boycott the 2022 World Cup in Qatar also surfaced amid human rights concerns, though Norway ultimately failed to qualify. Soft power now sits at the center of this moment. A host nation's ability to project openness, fairness, and hospitality often shapes global perception more than the football itself. When uncertainty grows over whether visitors will feel respected at the border, the narrative shifts away from sport and toward identity. International tournaments have always carried political undertones, but the speed and reach of modern communication mean every policy signal now reverberates instantly. Once confidence erodes, restoring it requires more than promotional videos or architectural renderings of stadiums. None of this guarantees empty seats or financial collapse. The World Cup remains one of the strongest brands in global sports, with billions expected to watch regardless of travel behavior. Many supporters criticizing U.S. policy online may still pursue visas and attend matches. National teams will compete, broadcasters will carry every moment, and corporate partners will roll out their campaigns. The tournament will happen. The more consequential question is how it will be remembered and which host nations emerge with enhanced reputations. Canada and Mexico appear to be gaining symbolic momentum as the debate continues. Their leaders have emphasized preparedness and inclusivity, reinforcing narratives that resonate with fans seeking straightforward travel experiences. If meaningful numbers of supporters redirect trips north or south of the U.S. border, economic benefits could shift accordingly. Money follows confidence, and confidence is shaped by perception. As ticket sales widen, the boycott movement faces its own test of durability. Online outrage can spike and fade, but concerns tied to immigration enforcement and political rhetoric tend to persist. FIFA's leadership must weigh logistical commitments against reputational risk, while U.S. officials balance security priorities with the optics of welcoming